So hopefully we've got some things going on here. I'm not too sure if we are live at the moment. Hopefully we are. Oh, Mr. Rogers is saying, "Yep, I can hear you." I think we're going to go for my intro again because it's awesome.
Live from an attic somewhere in the north, this is The Late Show with Tom Starkey.
We're going to be looking at browsers today, not looking at browser histories because that could cause all sorts of issues. We're going to be looking at browser extensions on this extremely hot Sunday evening. Thank you very much for tuning in. Browser extensions, a digital toolbox that will hopefully make your life a little bit easier. Stay tuned and you can listen to me melt into a puddle as the show goes on.
Live from an attic somewhere in the north, this is The Late Show with Tom Starkey. Tune in live at ttradio.org or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Yeah, make sure you do all those things. Probably not at the same time, otherwise you get really, really confused. So we're going to be talking about browser extensions. For those of you that don't know, browser extensions are little apps that sit on your browser, whether that be Google Chrome, whether that be Edge, whether that be Firefox, or whatever it is that is your personal internet choice. Now, the reason that I'm doing this particular show on this particular subject is because a lot of the students who I talk to on a daily basis use browser extensions as their own little digital toolbox. And I thought to myself, what a good idea to pass on some of the ones that are really, really good, some of the ones that are really robust and easy to use, and hopefully we'll come across something that you will find useful. The reasons that I use browser extensions primarily is because it's easy and I'm massively lazy. So I can press a little button at the top of my screen, I can go to the extension that I want to use, and there's a myriad. Oh, myriad. That's a good word for this type of the evening. There's a myriad of different things that they can do. Like last week when we looked at some of the different tools that you can use to try and keep children at bay during the holidays. I think that's going to become more and more important as time goes on, given the soaring temperatures. Oh my goodness me! I don't know if you can hear this. There is. What time is it? It's like 8:05, and there. I don't know if you can hear this, but there is an ice cream van tinkling away in the background. Absolute carnage. That's terrible. That I don't know if they've done that on purpose. You know, that I am dying for a 99 at the moment, but I am here, and here is where I'll stay up until around 9:30. So what we're going to do is going to look at a list of some of these browser extensions that you can use today that you can just add to your browser. They sit there, you don't even know that they're there until you need to use them. And I really, really like some of the ones that I'm going to mention. Also, I've had some really nice suggestions from people tweeting in. If you want to make any suggestions as the show goes on, please do at tstarkey1212 is my particular handle on Twitter. So I had some really good extensions. So we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. So where do we start? Well, I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of time on the internet. I'm tasked with researching particular areas. I'm tasked with looking at things. And my memory is perhaps not as good as it possibly is. So I spend an inordinate amount of time, or I did spend an inordinate amount of time, finding something, thinking, what a really good idea. I can use that in a session, or I can use that, or I can pass it on to a student and they might think it's useful. And then 3.5 seconds later, I have forgotten where that website is. And then I'm tracking back through my history. I'm like, oh my God, oh my Lord. So the first set of tools are basically links to popular digital binders, I like to call them. I'm talking about things like OneNote, things like Evernote, things like Notion, Notion's one I've been using a lot recently, not necessarily in my work day to day, but to kind of organize my personal life. But if you come across a website or you come across a page that you think is interesting, instead of having to bookmark it, then troll through your bookmarks, there are extensions that let you press a button, and then, as if by magic, that particular page gets stuck in your digital notebook and it's there forever, and you don't have to remember stuff. For me, who has difficulty remembering what they ate for dinner on a particular day, that is gold, absolute gold. So, some of the kind of um, digital kind of keepers, as it were, um, I think, what's the term that they usually use when it comes to this kind of thing? Oh, it's clippers. That's what they tend to use. So, OneNote Clipper is a great tool on a number of different browsers. I use OneNote for my work because I get it free from my work, and being an honorary northerner, massively tight. So I use OneNote Clipper when I'm doing my research. I think to myself, okay, I'm looking for a particular app that will help a student with ADHD remember to go to a particular appointment, or remember that they've made a note of a particular appointment, or remember that they should make a note of a particular appointment. Whatever, however it goes. But if you use OneNote Clipper, you simply press the extension button. The extensions are usually placed on the top of your browser, whatever it is that you're using. I'll be probably mainly talking about Chrome today because that's what I've got up on my screen in front of me. But there are a lot of different extensions for lots of different browsers. So if apologies if this isn't one for a browser that you use, or it's not available for the browser that you use. But in general, hopefully this will give you a good idea of some of the stuff that is out there. So yeah, OneNote Web Clipper is a really, really nice tool. You simply go onto a web page if you think to yourself, actually, that's something that I want to remember. That's something I want to research further at a later date. You press on the button on the extension. You press the extension button, even. That makes a bit more sense. And it will save it to a part of your OneNote notebook, your OneNote digital binder, and it's there forever, and you can go back to it at a later date. That's great. As I said, Evernote has its own version where you can just clip a page, or you can clip part of a page, or you can clip a sentence, highlight a sentence, which is really, really nice. And that's great as well. Notion has a fantastic web clipper as well. Now, the reason that I'm noting these things to begin with is that it's a shortcut, and goodness me, teachers need as many shortcuts as they can when maybe you're researching a subject that you're going to teach. Maybe you're researching other people's resources. Always good to see what else is out there before you start from scratch. And what you can do is you can very easily and very quickly come up with kind of your own research notebook, a digital research notebook that doesn't take very much effort to create. And that's great because effort's terrible. I don't like effort at the best of times. If you've listened to my show previously, that's true. Effort isn't really the thing that I'm fantastic at. And if you are doing lots of different tasks on a day-to-day basis, and you've got 10 minutes, you sit down in front of the computer, you think, oh God, that's really good, I want to remember that. Use a web clipper such as the OneNote web clipper, Evernote web clipper, Notion web clipper, Google Keep is really good in the kind of same genre of technology, and all those extensions are free to use. They integrate with whatever app it is that you use on a day-to-day basis, and it just cuts out a step, and it means that you don't have to worry about, okay, oh God, I put that in my favorites browser, which section in my favorites browser, oh God, I'm gonna have to check my history. Oh no, nah, mate, just press the button and it's there in all its glory. It can be the full page, it can be a section of the page, it can be an image from the page, it can be anything that you want, and you can keep it. And that kind of keeping things and not letting things flutter away because you're so busy with your day-to-day teaching duties, your day-to-day lecturing duties, or whatever kind of educational pursuit you're involved in, it just means that you can press it, grab it, and it's there and it's yours, and you can do what you want with it at any point in the future. And it's always sat there. You know, it's like having a tiny little PA. A tiny little PA, and you think to yourself, "Oh, I need to remember that." No, you don't. You just press the button, and it will grab it. It will put it somewhere safe for you. Hey, listen though, just as an offshoot, if you're grabbing all this stuff with absolutely no regard as to where you're putting it, which is unfortunately very common, myself included, although I do spend quite a lot of time trying to sort out my filing system when it comes to OneNote and Notion, in particular, the two programs that I use. It's just going to end up as messy as anything anyway. So when you do use these web clippers, it gives you a choice as to where you're going to put this particular web page or the particular quotation that you want to use or the particular resource. Use those things. Make sure you've got a filing system set up that you can find things easily to begin with. Otherwise, to be honest, any of these extensions that grab information, pretty much useless. You know, if you grab it and then you chuck it into a bush, what's the point? You know, grab it, put it nice and neatly into the correct folder that you want. And to be honest, teachers out there, you've got to be organized, haven't you? You know, to do the job. If you didn't do the job, if you did it chaotically, well, you'd end up, being a drama or a PE teacher. That's the one joke, ladies and gentlemen. Please, please do not inundate me with absolute bile. It's a joke. I know the drama and PE teachers are just as hardworking, even more hardworking than many of the educators. To be honest, any teacher out there is more hardworking than me at the moment because I don't teach. But I do spend a lot of time with technology, so hopefully this kind of stuff is relevant, is useful to you. So those are my first recommendations. Web clippers. See it, grab it, put it somewhere safe for a little bit of a peruse a bit later on over a coffee on an evening, or and you can collate information in different sources on the same subject, and you can just do it really easily. It's basically a really instant way to sort a digital binder out about any subject of your choice. It doesn't necessarily have to be an academic subject either, of course. It could be, where you're going on holiday. Probably more important if I think about it. It could be how am I going to organize this? Where can I get a swimming pool? One of those blow up swimming pools at this point in time. That's probably the most important subject that you could possibly use a web clipper for at this very sticky, sweaty juncture. So those are my first recommendations. OneNote web clipper, Google Keep, which is basically a web clipper, Evernote web clipper, Notion web clipper. Just grab that information, put it somewhere safe. You can look at it afterwards. Always useful if you're doing research, always useful if you're trying to come up ideas for a lesson plan. Just basically useful in general. So that's my first recommendation. We'll have a look at some other things. You may or may not know that I am an assistive technology advisor. You better know if you've listened to this because I keep mentioning it every single time. The reason that I mentioned that is that there are extensions that are available where you can basically kind of create your own assistive technology toolkit. And it's there, and usually it doesn't cost you very much at all, if anything. So, for instance, other really good accessibility extensions include things like Read Aloud, and Read Aloud is a text-to-speech tool that you can use on the web, just about anywhere on the web. There are certain restrictions, but if you do not want to transfer something into a document where you can use text to speech, you want it read to you then and there on the web without having to go anywhere else, without having to use a separate app. Read Aloud, text to speech, fantastic accessibility tool. Sits on your browser. You think to yourself, it doesn't necessarily have to be linked to a disability. You just think to yourself, I cannot read another word, but I've got to get through this particular thing. Download Read Aloud as an extension onto your browser, and you've got somebody who will be able to talk the text to you at any point. One of my favorites, actually, if I'm going to be honest, when it comes to extensions, browser extensions. Read Aloud, absolutely brilliant little app, free, sits on your browser. You can have things read to you from the web. I mean, how good is that? That's ace. It surprises me actually how few people use a range of extensions. Usually, I say usually, but from the people that I talk to, mainly HE students, they're aware of extensions, they're aware of browser extensions, but they don't particularly use them. And if they do, they only use kind of one or two. That in itself is absolutely okay. If you've got a favorite, and if you want to keep things simple, you want to keep things kind of, low key, absolutely brilliant. Just use a couple. But if you have a think to yourself, okay, is there something that does this? And there usually is, is there an extension for that? Yes, yeah, there usually is. So keeping with the accessibility theme, we've got things like EPUB Reader. EPUB Reader is a great choice on your web if you want to use an EPUB reader. For those of you that don't know, EPUB files are kind of electronic publication files. They are a nice way to read certain things either on the web or on another device, and they don't have some of the inherent issues that things like PDFs do. Yeah, really, really good. EPUB Reader, if you want to find it, I'm going to try and put most of these things in the Twitter chat on my Twitter handle today, because having a look at how many I've got through, there's a lot. So I'm not going to put it in the description for the download for this particular show. I'm going to see if I can try and keep up and see if I can come up with links for the technology that I've mentioned and just post them on Twitter and just direct people to the correct extension site. So EPUB Reader, all caps, really, really good way to read the EPUB format, which, in my opinion, is a really, really nice format when it comes to accessibility. Ding, 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 ding. There's the accessibility bell for this show. Second only, of course, to just plain HTML, which is just writing on the screen. So, so you can grab things from the screen. You can have things read to you from the screen using browser extensions. You can read things in different formats using browser extensions. I say, keep things simple, and I sometimes say, organize yourself. Organize yourself. Make sure everything's right. But at the moment, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I got 18 different browser extensions just sat on the top of my screen at the moment, Chrome in this case. You don't have to have that, because what that ends up doing, it ends up really killing your space on the screen. I've got a search, my search bar's tiny. It's absolutely tiny compared to all the other extensions that are kind of squeezing it out. But what you can do is you can also have a browser extension that organizes browser extensions. So extension organizer is a really, really good one. And what you can do is you can just put your different extensions into this kind of big old file. You can break that file up into kind of things like work, writing, holidays, timetables, and then you can just kind of break things up, make it really nice and neat. Not like mine. Mine looks like a multicolored, chaotic mess, if I'm going to be honest. But there are browser extensions that allow you to really easily manage browser extensions. There's meta technology for you. Forget forget Facebook and the like. Forget Meta. That's what Meta is. Browser extensions that look after browser extensions. Brilliant. Absolute genius. So those are a couple of things. The way that I'm doing this, and I'll let you into a trade secret at the moment, is I'm basically just looking at the list of browser extensions that I use. Hopefully some of these are really, really useful for you. If they are, fantastic. Let me know at Starkey1212 on Twitter. If not, well, don't be mean. You know what I mean? Come on, be nice. I'm trying my best here. It's really hot. I'm sat in an attic. I've got the window open, and I've got a cup of water in a copper glass just to keep it cold. So don't be giving me jip. So accessibility, browser extensions for accessibility, really, really good. Browser extensions to capture information, really, really good. Now, one of the other big issues that I find when it comes to trying to research something or trying to carry out a task digitally on the web is the fact that I'm forever getting distracted. I might come across something interesting, and then I kind of just divert from the main road into a lay-by of cats playing pianos, or somebody has said something on Twitter that I disagree with, and it must be addressed at this very second. If you have a habit when you're trying to do something on the web of doing anything on the web and not doing the thing that you're supposed to, there's an extension for that, browser extension such as Stay Focused. Stay Focused, and that's Stay Focused without the E for at the end of focused for reasons. Who knows? I know, it's branding, isn't it? But Stay Focused is a really, really nice web app killer. I've mentioned it in other shows. So if you think to yourself, I cannot get distracted at this point, I've got to get this work done, I cannot be looking at YouTube cats, I cannot be trying to argue with strangers on Twitter. What Stay Focused does, it allows you to create a list of websites that it'll block for a designated amount of time. Or if you want to get really, really hardcore, it will block everything apart from the one thing that you're using at that moment. Whether you're that brave. I've never been that brave, apart from when I've had a writing deadline. Actually, I've done that a fair few times. But yeah, Stay Focused, really, really nice extension browser. You click on it, you tell it which websites you need to block for the next hour or so, and if you're anything like me, it really helps when you become distracted by the incredible amount of inanity that you can find on the internet sometimes, and it kind of gives you a pinpoint focus as to what you should be doing and getting rid of everything else that it should be doing. Sits on your browser, absolutely free. Takes a little bit to set up, but not very much. A couple of minutes to set up, and then bang, away. Productivity shoots up, I find, when you are not looking at piano playing cats. So all of those have come under really the kind of accessibility heading, productivity. Sometimes those two things are very much linked. There's other things. We talked about Read Aloud being a text-to-speech app that sits in your browser, but there are speech-to-text apps that also sit in your browser. I use Gmail quite a lot, and I've downloaded onto my browser as a browser extension Dictation for Email. It's a specific dictation app for Gmail, as it were. It means that I can speak into Gmail rather than having to type away my 3 words per minute speed of my typing. And there's lots of different options in regards to that type of technology. Dictation for Gmail works in Gmail really good, no problems whatsoever there. Or we have other choices such as, he says, rapidly trying to scroll down his bar. Excuse me. Another one for when it comes to text to speech is Natural Reader. Natural Reader is a nice text to speech option, but if it's speech to text, yeah, Gmail Dictation is a really, really nice program for that. And I've mentioned this one before, but this is also very, very good when it comes to accuracy, and you want to dictate something either on the web or in a document that it has access to. Voice-in-voice typing is a really, really good dictation app. It saves you time, it saves you space, and of course, accessing it is really quick. It's as quick as pressing a button on your browser, and boom, you're away. You can talk. I talk a lot. I talk very fast, and I certainly do it a lot faster than I type. So that's one of the reasons why I use that particular function as a browser extension on my own browser. So that is that's an introduction. We've got information capture and retrieval. We've got dictation. We've got speech to text. We've got things that will just act as kind of shortcuts to programs that already exist. But why go and spend a minute opening up a different program when you can have it all there just sat on your browser, immediately accessible? And that's one of the reasons that I like browser extensions. They're just there, they're fantastic. If they get a bit too prominent, you can use browser extension managers as browser extensions, and you can sort things out to your heart's content. But hopefully that's a good introduction as to some of the things that can be done with browser extensions. So what I'm going to try and do now is I am going to try to play the news, take a quick little break to basically just jump into an ice bath. I do wish I had something like that. That would be brilliant. I'm going to do that, and when I get back, we're going to have a look at some of the suggestions from the audience out there. Once again, thank you very much for joining in, everybody.
This episode of Teachers Talk Radio has been made possible with support from Witherslack Group, the UK's leading provider of SEN education and care. They're here to support you too through an ever-growing offer of free resources, including webinars, podcasts, articles, and events aimed at supporting teaching professionals like you. Visit their website at www.witherslackgroup.co.uk to find out more.
Imagine a world where you were free to focus on sparking curiosity in your students and giving them access to the awe and wonder of learning. A world where you were supported to deliver a truly personalised education to help all your learners achieve their potential. No need to imagine it, because that's exactly what the Oxford Smart Curriculum Service delivers. Seamlessly integrating curriculum, resources, assessment, next steps and professional development, every component of Oxford Smart is connected and working to provide you with a uniquely coherent and responsive service that empowers you and your students with transformational effect. The Oxford Smart Curriculum Service. When everything connects, anything is possible.
If you have a passion for education and a talent for teaching and learning, the Witherslack Group want to hear from you. Join them as they open an incredible new school in Essex and be a founding teacher of English, maths, science or primary, with multiple leadership opportunities available too. As Teachers Talk Radio partners, we know how much they care about the well-being of staff, and their offer to you will be superb. To find out more and apply for a role, visit www.witherslackgroup.co.uk/careers.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Gail Glenn.
Young members of the Margate-based Lived Experience crew joined with students from 9 schools across the country, travelling to London to raise the alarm over the UK's plastic waste problem. The trip to Parliament came after pupils took part in the Big Plastic Count, a citizen science project launched by Greenpeace UK and non-profit organisation Everyday Plastic. The count involved some 100,000 households, schools, community groups and businesses across the UK, counting their plastic packaging waste, recording the different types they throw away, and entering their results into the campaign website. The campaign aims to convince the government to take more action to cut plastic production, ban plastic waste exports, and transition to refill and reuse alternatives which are affordable, accessible, and appropriate for all. Union leaders have warned newly appointed cabinet ministers that many teachers and nurses will quit their profession in the coming weeks if public sector pay deals are further delayed by chaos at the top of government. Patrick Roach, General Secretary of the NAS UWT, has written to the new Education Secretary, James Cleverly, asking for publication of the review body recommendations for teachers. Roach said it was essential that agreement was reached as soon as possible, so that teachers did not leave the profession before the beginning of the new school year. What is important is that the process is not kicked into the long grass. We must ensure that full consultation takes place and that teachers get what they deserve. This has been your latest Teachers Talk Radio News with Gail Glenn.
This is 2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello, over the next few episodes I'm going to discuss connections, so let's get wired or not, as the case may be. The plan was to do this in order of most essential, however a chicken and egg question came first. What is the most essential connection, the internet or your display device? Without the internet there'd be far less interaction, however how does this compare to the ability to display your screen to the class? I asked you on Twitter and at Elizabeth J. Rowan was the first to answer with I'll hasten to add the most popular choice, the internet. There's 1001 ways to present or display information. I couldn't agree more. And talking of more, at More to Learn, question my question, asking why do I have to choose? Showing the expectation we teachers have for both. However, when asked to choose, the answer was the internet, and give me a whiteboard pen. So, let's talk about the internet and the difference it makes to teaching. We have a connection to the biggest network of networks at our fingertips, indexed by powerful search engines that return results in seconds, even ranking them in an order of likelihood of them containing the answer we are looking for. Obviously, we need to swerve adverts and fake news from time to time, but what a resource we have. For those of us willing to admit they were around, 20 years ago teachers were still transitioning from chalkboards. Every teacher was in the process of getting a laptop, the projector was on a trolley you wheeled into the classroom, and social media didn't exist. You couldn't just take a virtual tour inside a volcano or go on an interactive 3D journey through the digestive system, have a guided tour around a highly secure Google storage facility, drop a jelly baby on a map, walk around the coast of Spain, Italy or Australia. The internet has brought us all of this, and harnessing, filtering and presenting its power to our pupils has become an art that we have had to master. So here are a couple of tricks you can use to keep yourself organized. Control plus D bookmarks a page. But did you know that if you make a folder of bookmarks you can right click and open all? All of your bookmarks in that folder open as new tabs. This is great if moving from one lesson to another on a different topic. If you use a lot of YouTube clips and websites, Wakelet is a great way to organize collections of links and clips. It's free to make an account and you can share collections via links with pupils. I'd like to finish with a question. Do you know the difference between the internet and the World Wide Web? Tune in next week to find out. Why not get in touch at TT Radio 2022? Follow us and tell us what you want to know about tech. I'm Steve Woods, and that was 2 Minute Tech.
2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Steve Woods there, what a tease. I don't know the difference between the internet and the web. You know, tell me, Steve. Tell me. That's a good idea. I need to start doing that at the end of my shows. Yeah. Do you know this? No? Tune in. That's great. That's such a good hook. Anyway, so back to browsers, extensions, using them as a digital toolkit, using them to save yourself some time in your busy working lives. Now, I'm not too sure about you, but being a ex-English teacher, yeah, I know, it's hard to believe. I tend to do a little bit of writing every now and again. Sometimes I don't want to open up a Word document and mess about with formatting and so on and so forth. So next couple of choices when it comes to extension browsers are about simple ways of getting some thoughts down really quickly, really easily, without having to kind of go through and opening, clicking on this, waiting for it to load, doing it, oh god, oh no, I don't really like using. I'm trying to come up with something a bit clearer, a bit easier. I just want to write. So if you do just want to write, you don't want to have to worry about formatting. You don't have to worry about opening. And to be honest, some places it takes 2.5 minutes for Word to open anyway. But if you just want to get a thought down, or if you want to do some writing without any kind of bells and whistles and distractions, there's a couple of really good options when it comes to extension browsers. For instance, diff-free. Diff-free sits on an extension browser and you press that particular program and it comes up with a very nice, very simple word processing, a page of word processing. You get rid of the text that's already there and you can just write. So if you think to yourself, I've got an idea for this particular lesson, I need to get this down before I forget about it, instead of waiting for Word to open, instead of waiting for your chosen word processor, or, sometimes I look at Word and I just think, oh God. I like the office environment, but I'm not fond of Word as a word processor. Strangely enough, it's been with me forever, and you just think to yourself, oh, it's a bit clunky. You're just a bit clunky. So if you want to streamline that process and you think to yourself, okay, I just want to press one button, get something up where I can just type away. Diff-Free, which is Diffree, if you want to have a look for it yourself, is a really good extension browser where you can just press on the extension browser button, and then it just comes up with a nice simple word processor that you can just type. There's lots of other different options when it comes to kind of simple, straightforward, distraction-free word processors as extension browsers as well. Calmly is one of my favorites. I've mentioned it before in the show, so I thought I'd give somebody else a try. If you use Google Docs, you can download a browser extension that is called it's not called that because that's not even a word, but there's one that's called distraction free mode. You can place that in your browser extensions. You go to Google Docs, you press on that browser extension button, and it does the same thing. It clears away all the clutter. You don't have to concentrate on anything but just writing what you want to write. I think sometimes when you have so many things going on, you have so many ideas, you have a limited amount of time for things to load, or if you're just sick to death of the Word environment, which sometimes it happens to me, bless Word, it's a workhorse. Is it the best word processor? Not for me, not for somebody who gets easily distracted by things like format or wants to place an image somewhere, all that kind of stuff. But Diff-Free, really nice browser extension. You press on the browser extension, it brings up a web page that is just a very simple word processor. Simple is key sometimes. I did an episode a little while back about distraction-free technology, and Diff-Free, Diffree, is a really nice example of that. When it comes to kind of simple things that can help you stay organized, I also like the use of Kanban boards. Like to-do boards in 3 columns. I'm going to be thinking about this, I'm doing this, and I've completed this. I love having that completed column. It usually sits there empty in my case, but at least it's there. But if you like Kanban boards as a way to organize your tasks, task organization is really, really important. There is a really nice browser extension called Canby, Kanbie. If you're doing anything on the web and you think to yourself, okay, I need to put that as a task, or I need to just see what I need to do for the rest of the day. What are the 30 things that I have to do, 40 things, 100 things, dependent on how much you got on your plate. You want to organize it you want to make sure that you get those tasks done. Canby is a wonderful little browser extension. You just press it and it pops up a nice, straightforward, simple Kanban board that you can just go to town on. You can put your tasks in as you do them. You can move them. It's satisfying in moving those tasks that you complete from the to-do to the in process to the done section. Oh, that done section is an absolute lifesaver looking at that sometimes. So yeah, Canby, browser extension, sorry. Press it, bring up a Kanban board. Nice and simple. Also, if you're thinking about kind of idea organization, for instance, you can use extension browsers that bring up mind maps. One of my favorites is very simply titled Mind Maps for Google Chrome, spelled as is, which is quite unusual. Something about tech products and giving them names that have things missing makes them an absolute bugger when you're trying to describe them and you're trying to give like the link to people. But this one's a nice simple one. Mind Maps for Google Chrome. You go into the extension section, write that in, and it just blazes up a quick, simple mind map. If you've got a project that you want to get on with, you want to start thinking around it, thinking about some of the different facets of it, and so on and so forth. That's a really, really good one. But anyway, I did say, didn't I, before the break, that I would be looking at other people's suggestions. So listen, if you have made suggestions via Twitter, thank you very much. I mean, this show is nothing without people just kind of, writing and taking their time to offer really good suggestions on whatever topic it is that is happening at that moment in time. It could be anything, considering the chaotic way that I organise and plan these podcasts. Anyway, so let's have a look. So Chris Baker, thank you very much, Chris Baker. And that's Mr. Baker Physics. says that link clump, LINKCLUMP, is ace for researching stuff. So really quickly opens loads of links at once in tabs. So what that means is that you're not spending that time kind of pressing on that and pressing on that and pressing on that and so on and so forth, opening up things that you don't need to close anything. Get link club, excuse me, it's this dry air. I'm in the attic. I've got no fan. I'm sticking my head out of the window every so often just so I can breathe. Sorry, that's link clump, LINKCLUMP. Press a button, opens up all the links that you may not need. It means that you don't have to go searching through. Time saving, a lot of this stuff that we're recommending, and thank you very much, Chris, for recommending that. A lot of this stuff is about saving you some time. Time is such a precious commodity when it comes to teaching. So link clump, press a button, open up all the links on excuse me, on your tabs, find what you need really quickly. Take a step away from that kind of searching and, oh God, is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? So thanks a lot for that, Chris. To be honest, that's not one that I'd heard of. So I'm going to give that a go and have a look at it as soon as the show ends. But yeah, really appreciate you making that suggestion. Thank you very much, Mr. Baker. We have an absolute classic here from Dan Rosen. I'm going to get your handle up, Dan. That is Musing So FADR. So Musing So Fadar. Okay, all right. But Dan Rosen, look him up on Twitter because he's coming up with some really, really good advice. Says Google Translate. Google Translate you can use as a browser extension, which means that you can translate any of the pages that you come across. Fantastic if you work in international schools. Dan himself says Google Translate, very useful when working internationally. Can be a really, really useful tool if you want to translate from another language into English, perhaps English into another language, and so on and so forth. Google Translate, I am shamefully monolingual. I speak English and I don't speak it all that well, if I'm going to be honest. So the accuracy, sometimes I've had to rely on Google Translate in regards to accuracy of translation. It's okay. It's up there. It gives, I tell you what, it's better than me trying to figure something out, or better than me taking the time to learn another language and then translate it myself. So Google Translate, it's a really, really good suggestion, Dan Rosen. Thank you very much for giving it. And we have Cantab Kitty. Thank you very much, Cantab. The only one I have is for Zoho Vault, which manages all my passwords. Once again, if you have lots of things that you are doing on a daily basis, if you are going onto different sites, I've been on websites recently and I've thought, oh, this is a really, really good website. You know what I'll do? I'll join up. And I've tried to join up and it says, you've already joined up. And when? When did I do this? I have no memory of this place. It's like when was I here? But password, making sure that you have your passwords, making sure you have the correct passwords to all the different things that you might be using digitally, incredibly important. So Cantab Kitty, thank you very much. Zoho Vault is a password management system. There are lots of different options in regards to programs and in regards to programs that you can use as browser extensions. But Zoho Vault, I have used it in the past. It is a really, really good one. Moving a little bit away from the explicitly educational into the world of web development. David Boggett, at David Boggett on Twitter, says Tab Expert. It's another one of those. That's TAB capital X PERT for synchronizing Windows tabs in the cloud. Really, really. If you're working at different workstations, if you're working in different places, I have a workstation at home. I have a workstation at work. I have a kind of mobile workstation because I have to leg it around my institution a fair bit. So. But if you need to keep all these things, all these windows, all these tabs that you collect, all this useful information, you need to keep it all in the different places that you are. Tab Expert for synchronizing windows and tabs in the cloud is a good one, according to David. File Shot for screen grabs. I've got a couple of other options when it comes to screen grab and screen capture. Taking a picture, control print screen. Does anybody use print screen anymore? bless you, well done if you do. Does my nut, to be honest. There are lots of options out there. For instance, David says fire shot for screen grabs is a really good one. Why screen grabs important? Well, maybe you have a technical issue. Maybe you want to show your students part of a particular page. Maybe you want to stick that up on the overhead projector, and so having a quick and easy way of doing that, really, really, really important. CAS, sorry, he also goes on to say CSS Peeper for seeing CSS styles. Clear Cache does what it says on the tin. Clearing your cache can just speed things up something chronic when it needs to in lots of different situations. So having one button that does that for you, absolutely excellent. Having one button that sits on the top of your browser, even better. And he also goes on to say that Tab Expert isn't free if you want to synchronize in the cloud, but he finds it invaluable. So thank you very much, David, for that. It's nice to kind of veer off into certain things because, of course, if you're working in education, you're not necessarily a teacher. You could be in IT support. You could be in digital management. You could be in all sorts of different things. And those sound like really, really good tools. So thank you very much for that. Very much appreciate you getting in touch. Those are some from you wonderful people out there. Thank you very much for taking the time to, excuse me, for taking the time to give those suggestions in. I am a hoarder when it comes to this kind of thing. So anybody out there who wants to suggest one of their favorite browser extensions, please do, because you'll give it a shout out on the show. But also, it means that I'm going to nick it and use it myself if it's useful. And I'm all for, like I said, it's all about shortcuts, isn't it? So people with that kind of expertise when it comes to digital management, or people when it comes to something that they've found that's really, really, really good for teachers, or whatever the case may be, any kind of browser extension that you think might be useful to the general populace of the education world, as it were. Let me know at tstarkey1212. Stick it in. Big Boss Man, Mr. Rogers says, I used to use Loom a lot. Pretty cool. Yeah, Loom's really, really good. And also, you've just nicked one of my suggestions, Tom, but that's all right. That's okay. I can deal with it. Loom has an extension browser. If you want to create a quick video looking at things like, maybe it's an instructional video. My goodness me, I've been spending a lot of time recently creating video resources when it comes to online courses. I'm trying to create a series of online courses because, in my day-to-day, I have many students that, being physically present in somewhere is not possible for various reasons. So I am currently at this time trying to create a fairly large online course, and one of the tools that I use most is Loom. But to save myself some time, instead of thinking, oh, I should Loom this, because I love it when people use that kind of stuff as a verb. Yeah, right. Instead of going to the program and going back and to and fro, simply press on the browser extension for Loom, and Loom pops up fairly instantaneously. You can do a quick video or a long video, whatever floats your boat or finds your lost remote, and it's there. There's lots of different options when it comes to screen capture, whether it be still capture, whether it video capture. But I very much agree with Bossman there. Loom is a really, really good one. I also like the fact that it's got that nice little round window in the corner if you are also wanting to have your face on video. I don't use that ever because, I'm trying to get the widest audience possible. I don't want to put my face up there because that's a very quick drop off, very quick way to lose your audience if you have me going, hello. But yeah, Loom, really good, very easy to use as well. And the extension browser makes those kind of videos even easier to use. So yeah, Loom's a really good one. Thanks very much, Mr. Rogers. That's a really, really good suggestion. As we go back into the depths of my own browser extensions, one of the things that I hate doing is that I hate clicking out of something to get back into something. And one of the one of the environments that I use the most is Office. Office 365, Office for the web. I can't remember what they're calling it this week, but anyway. So instead of having to, go in, or instead of, this is the thing, the amount of time, back to that digital native thing, and the amount of time that I see people tapping the address into the browser to get to a particular site. Absolutely fine, of course, but let's cut that out. Just put the thing that you use most, or put the things that you use most, find the browser extensions for them and use them. So, for instance, Office 365 has its own browser extension. You press on that, it brings up your recent files, it brings up your recent documents. It also brings up links to whatever facet of the Office environment that you want to get to, whether that be PowerPoint, Excel, Word, etc., etc. Once again, just a shortcut, just a way of getting to the place that you want to be that little bit faster, thereby saving you some time, and perhaps, excuse me, and perhaps allowing you a bit of time to do things that are a bit more important. It's something that I say to my students. There's a lot of academic donkey work out there when it comes to HE. And if you can find a browser extension that lets you cut down even just a little bit of time, it all adds up. It all adds up. So yeah, Office has its own browser extension in Edge, in Chrome, in Firefox, and others. So give that a go and save yourself on some time for typing in the actual thing that you have to type in the browser. And of course, if you're rubbish at typing like I am, that takes even more time. So yeah, that's so information capture, accessibility, organization, and productivity. I tell you what, I'm not supposed to have favorites, but I cannot recommend Canby more. I love Canby. It's simple, it's easy, it sits on your screen, and when I very rarely complete a task and move it to the completed comment, it gives you such a sense of satisfaction. I appreciate simple design when it comes to digital space. Always have done, from an accessibility point of view, but also just from a personal aesthetic point of view. And Canby is one of those ones that you think, you know what, great, just nice and simple and free. And that's for me, that's important as well. You have to log in, you have to give certain details, as is often the case, but money-wise, not a penny. Speaking of money, have you been ever tasked to find a resource and are trying to find something that hopefully you're not using your own cash to find resources for the classroom? If you are, you might want to have a chat with whoever's asking you to do that. Or if you don't have the resources that are needed for a particular thing, also have a chat, because it's not up to teachers to pay for resources, lads and lasses. It's not. I don't care what people think. If you do that, that's absolutely great, but I come from a place where when I started, I couldn't afford to buy resources for students, and I went, my first teaching gig, they ran out of A4 paper halfway through. It seems strange now, doesn't it? It just ran out, and there were teachers paying for paper, paying for pens, and all those things. I couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford it. So, yeah, good on you if you can do it, but it shouldn't be an expectation. But if you are looking for a little bit of extra equipment, if you're looking for, maybe a nice little desk organizer for work, something that's your own. Maybe you're looking for one of those USB fans that have you seen those ones that you can put around your neck? I never trusted those. I've got fairly large ears, and I want to keep them. But anyway, if you're looking for a good deal, whether it be school equipment, whether it be something for your desk, Amazon, pretty evil, according to many sources, but cheap. But to make it cheaper, you can use an extension browser, something like Keepa, which is Keepa, which is an Amazon price tracker. So you can make sure you're getting value as to whatever it is that you might be looking for. It gives you a kind of timeline as to how much this stuff has cost in the past. And if you think to yourself, oh, that's a really good deal, and you've got Keepa running, it's like, no, it used to be like 50% cheaper 2.5 weeks ago. Gives you pause for thought. But these are things, when it comes to buying resources, when it comes to getting the best deal possible for a school. So not necessarily teachers themselves, but managers, people who are holding the purse strings. Keeper sits on your browser. You go on to Amazon, and it will tell you how much that thing cost over a number of weeks, even months, even years in some cases. So you can make a judgment as to whether something is of good value. So, so shopping then. Screen recording, making sure that you are doing things without distraction, having something read to you, having an easy way of collating and grabbing information. All these things are available as extension browsers. Look at what's available. Take some time. Like I said, my own extension, I've got about 20 sat on my own. You don't have to have 20. Please actually don't have 20 just sat on the top of your screen. But you do have the chance to try some of these things out, and they may make your life a little bit easier when it comes to saving yourself some time, finding information, taking on board information in a particular way, looking at how things are made when it comes to websites themselves, and so on and so forth. So we'll just have our sponsors again, and we will, after the break, we will look at some of my very favorites when it comes to extension browsers.
This episode of Teachers Talk Radio has been made possible with support from Witherslack Group, the UK's leading provider of SEN education and care. They're here to support you too through an ever-growing offer of free resources, including webinars, podcasts, articles, and events aimed at supporting teaching professionals like you. Visit their website at www.witherslackgroup.co.uk to find out more.
Imagine a world where you were free to focus on sparking curiosity in your students and giving them access to the awe and wonder of learning. A world where you were supported to deliver a truly personalised education to help all your learners achieve their potential. No need to imagine it, because that's exactly what the Oxford Smart Curriculum Service delivers. Seamlessly integrating curriculum, resources, assessment, next steps and professional development, every component of Oxford Smart is connected and working to provide you with a uniquely coherent and responsive service that empowers you and your students with transformational effect. The Oxford Smart Curriculum Service. When everything connects, anything is possible.
If you have a passion for education and a talent for teaching and learning, the Witherslack Group want to hear from you. Join them as they open an incredible new school in Essex and be a founding teacher of English, maths, science or primary, with multiple leadership opportunities available too. As Teachers Talk Radio partners, we know how much they care about the well-being of staff, and their offer to you will be superb. To find out more and apply for a role, visit www.witherslackgroup.co.uk/careers.
So yeah, we've had an absolute plethora of extension browsers. If you haven't used these before, give them a go. I've been using them for about 4 or 5 years extensively. Before that, I had a couple on there, and I thought to myself, to be honest, when I got into my current role, that's when I really started looking at it, because for me, it offers just about anybody a kind of DIY accessibility toolbox. There are some bespoke, of course. There are some bespoke browser extensions that look specifically at accessibility. I'm not going to go into those too much in this particular show, because I'm going to do accessibility again at some point in the future, because it's kind of my bag, and do a show specifically on accessibility. Now, I've done it before, but I am going to do it again. You can't stop me. It's my show. But I want to keep that for that particular show. So, but back to browser extensions. As I said, I'm doing online courses at the moment. I'm trying to create online courses. It's going very slowly. it's going very slowly. But one of the things that has sped it up for me when it comes to kind of directing people on how to do things, giving people instructions on how to do things, is a lovely little extension for a program which is called Scribe. Now, Scribe, as is Scribe, Scribe is a fantastic tool when it comes to a stepped instructional program on how to do certain things digitally. What it does, it basically records the steps that you go through as you are using the tool. So you can use it to show people how to open a folder. You can use it to show people, and this is what I'm using it for in my particular work at the moment. You can use it to show people where the ease of access suite is on Windows PCs, because although my day to day, my bread and butter is accessibility, but lots of people don't know where these things are. Lots of people don't understand that there is an ease of access suite that one actually exists when it comes to Windows. So I use Scribe as a browser extension. I click on it, then I go through the process of where things are. I open up the Easy Access Center, and it records those steps for me. And then I can use the document that it creates or the web page that it creates. Excuse me, I'm just shifting here because it's all getting a little bit sweaty. I can use it to just easily, and I mean easily, this, when it comes to trying to get instructions out there, when it comes to trying to get people to go to a certain place in a certain way, you have to think about it a lot, because you're dealing with learners. You don't know what you don't know what their history is. They don't know how much they know to start off with, and it's the same in schools. So when you're trying to explain a digital process, Scribe is a really, really good way of doing that. It says itself. One of the reasons it's so quick is because it auto-generates certain steps, auto-generates titles. You can edit it at a later date, but a lot of the time you don't have to. You just click, 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 click. This is what you do. This is where you go. Click, click, open that, and then boom, it's got a list of instructions for the user, for the end user who you want to give it to. And that is great. It's a great program in itself, but it's also a lovely, lovely way of cutting down time, especially if you use that as a browser extension. So to be honest, now this is where it's going to get a little bit technical, because what I'm going to do is, for this very late stage in the show, let's see if I can actually get there. These are basically Tom's Tech Tips. This is the Tom's Tech Tips section, and I haven't actually added the Tom's Tech Tips jingle into the show at the moment, but I'm going to try and give it a go. So let's have a look. So if you're thinking about what should I really, really use, what's your top 3 or top 4 in this case, these are the ones that I recommend. And Scribe for teachers. For simple things as to if you have a VLE, or if you're using a program like Google Classroom, like Teams for Education, and you have students who are struggling about how to access certain parts, or struggling about how to actually get on to the system itself. Scribe is a fantastic way of making sure that you've got a stepped, easily understandable and auto-generated set of instructions to do those things. So let's see how this goes.
Come on and listen to Tom's Tech Tips.
I've missed that jingle. I've really missed that jingle. For those of you that haven't been in previous weeks, I've been having some right problems when it comes to adding things to the podcast. So yeah, I've missed that jingle. So Scribe is one of the big ones for me. Just a really, really good program. Auto-generates instructions for you when it comes to digital resources. But if you use the browser extension, it's almost instantaneous. And that's what we need. We need things that's going to save ourselves some time, save ourselves some effort when it comes to these things. And things that save effort, I've become much more appreciative when I have dipped my toe into online course creation, because there's some great stuff on there. You know what? Hang on, that's a really good idea for a future show. How to create. It may sound like I'm winging it, at this point in time, but I am. So, that's why I'm ringing it. I've got a little whiteboard next. I'm just going to put that away. Yeah, brilliant. Online course creation. So if you want your students to do a certain thing online digitally, Scribe is a great tool, but having the extension browser for Scribe is even better. Now, the next one is a purely superfluous browser extension. And I'm sorry, but I love it. I absolutely love it. There's no need for it. It doesn't really do anything. And I've probably mentioned it before. It's a feature that is in Calmly, one of the an extension browser for a no distraction word processor, as it were. But this works all over the web, and it's called Typewriter, written as is, spelled as is, Typewriter. If you're in a busy office and you don't like someone. If you're in a busy office and you don't like some, no, that's not the case. What Typewriter does is that if you use it as a browser extension, you turn it on, and it makes every keystroke sound like an old style typewriter. I appreciate that kind of audio feedback when I'm working. I also appreciate the funny looks that I get in an office when I am using it. Yeah, it's not for everybody. It's not, but it's just one of those fun little things. I've concentrated on lots of very functional extension browsers up until this point, but Typewriter extension browser is one of my favorites. It just makes your day go that little bit faster as you're clacking away. If you don't want to disturb people, that's completely understandable. You can put your headphones on. But I have found that having that kind of audio feedback when it comes to writing can make things just a little bit quicker. Yeah, it's old school. There's no school like the old school. So Typewriter is another one of my favorite browser extensions. It's one I use possibly more than anything else, and that says a lot about me thinking about that. Hopefully I'm in this show, I'm giving you some really good tips on some really useful stuff. And one of my favorites is the one that's not particularly useful, but it's kind of fun. Yeah, Typewriter. Change any work that you're doing, change it into kind of like a 1950s movie where you're in a newsroom and you're just tapping away. I love that. Absolutely love that. Yeah, Typewriter is a really, really good one. Yeah, so that's one of the two. Scribe for digital instruction, Typewriter if you want to pretend that you are, Bogart or something like that. And the last one is a slightly different one. I have a problem when it comes to keeping on track, but also I have a problem when it comes to when I do get focused on something. I have a terrible tendency to spend too much time on that thing. Teachers are very busy. In profession, it's one of the most busiest. It's the busiest, I would say, profession that I've ever come across. And I've done things. I used to work in a university bar. I served one night. I served 2,027 pints of snakebite and black. It was a big drinking university, and even when I was doing that, I was not as busy as I was as a teacher. So this particular extension is linked to a program, but it's called Toggle Track. It's a productivity and time tracker, and as an extension browser, what it does is that it sits on your browser. So if you are doing something, you can press the button, and it starts taking and recording the time it's taken you to do this thing. If you are an educational freelancer out there, this is a really, really good tool as well. I have dabbled in the dark side of educational consultancy. I wish I had this back then. But one of the other reasons that I use it is so that I can stay on track when I become really focused on a task. Because, teachers' times are precious. I'm not a teacher, you guys all work over and above the hours that are given. And sometimes it's very easy to do that and then, neglect certain other aspects of your life, and although teaching is an incredibly important job, you don't want to give up too much to do it. Toggle Track is a really nice extension browser that allows you to record the time that you're taking on particular tasks. Excuse me. And what it does is that after you have been using it, you can have a look and see what you're spending most time on. It also means that you can prove to somebody that you are actually taking the time to do certain stuff. It integrates into other apps such as Teams, Word, and a whole host of other different apps. So you can use it in different apps. You press a button, it starts the clock. You give what you're doing a particular title, and it just the timer keeps going until you stop and you press it to stop. It's basically a clock in, clock out, like an old time card machine, but for a number of roles. For instance, if you are an education consultant, if you're working freelance. I know a lot of people out there listening to this particular show are freelance in the areas of education technology. But but also for teaching in general, it's a good way of keeping track. It's a good way of looking at what you do on a day-to-day basis, looking at how much time you spend doing certain tasks on a day-to-day basis. I found that using Toggle Track, it means that I can look at what I'm doing. I'm thinking, hang on, I'm spending too much time on this particular task and not enough time doing this. And that's invaluable to me, because when I do start focusing on something, it's very difficult for me to let that go until it's completed. And that can mean that I end up neglecting other things, not just other parts of work, but neglecting some of the fun stuff, family, friends, those kind of things. You don't want to give that stuff up for teaching. No. Teaching's a fantastic profession, but you don't have to give yourself completely over to it. And anybody that says that you do is massively sus, in my opinion. And if you find also that you are spending an inordinate amount of time on your job, and that means that you're not looking after things like your health, your social life, family life, just have a think about what parts of this job are worth it. I've gone into my kind of like deep and meaningful and like last 15 minutes of ending. So let's keep it light. Yeah. So Toggle Track, really good extension browser. It's like a digital time card, basically. You can tell what you're doing. So that would be my last recommendation for.
Come on and listen to the Tom Stack tips.
So hopefully, with the plethora, myriad, avalanche, as it were, of browser extensions, you have found something that is particularly useful. If you haven't, that's absolutely fine. Don't let it put you off actually trying to find something yourself. If you think to yourself, oh, is there something that, can track my habits? Yes, there is. There's lots of browser extensions that can track your habits. Is there something that can change the font of a particular document so I can change it to a much easier to read font that I prefer? Yeah, there is. There's an extension for that. Is there a audio recorder that I can just press on my browser and it'll just allow me to make a quick audio note as to whatever it is that I am currently looking at? Yeah, there is. So there is a lot of stuff that is out there, and some of it is really, really useful. Really useful. Pretty much in the vein of saving you time, and pretty much in the vein of saving you effort. And if I am about anything, it's about those two things: time and effort. Even in the case of, some of this stuff means you're just not typing an address into a browser. That's I know you think, oh well, is that all that good? Yeah, of course it is. You do that 5 times a day, saving yourself 15 minutes a day. That's a sandwich and a half. That you could be eating, guys. You could be eating rather than this stuff. Honorable mentions. Not particularly my favourite, but oh, hang on. Let's have a look back at the comments, because I love the fact that people actually do comment. Marina Robb on Twitter. My school blocks all the useful ones. Oh yeah. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm talking from a place of best practice. Yeah, I mean, there's certain security issues with some of these browsers, the browser extensions, and that's the truth. However, for instance, the IT department at my place of work is fantastic. Speaking of hardworking people, they've got to be some of the most hardworking people that I've ever known. But they've, after a conversation about some of the benefits that some of these browsers can bring, especially in my case to students and staff with disabilities, You know, you put forward an argument, and if somebody's even remotely receptive in regards to things like workload, they should be listening to you. If you find something you think, this is gonna really change things for me, uh, try and see if you can get over that hump. There's a lot. In all honesty, there's also a lot of computer says no as well. But sometimes these things, the use of these things, are just fairly self-evident. But so that's one of the things when it comes to browser extensions. Marina, it's a very good point. It's a very good point. We don't live in a perfect world. Sometimes schools block everything on site you know, just for security purposes. It's understandable. However, I think some of these things are hugely, hugely useful. So, in the last 13 and a half minutes of the session, let me do a quick summation and a reason why I would thoroughly recommend you having a look at the extensions in your browser. Even if I haven't come up with something that you might think is useful, have a look and see if there's something. You just go to extensions. Go to extensions, type in something that you think might be useful for you. For me, I spend a lot of time when it comes to accessibility extensions. That's my starting point. But there are productivity and organization. There's even sections that are specifically for teachers as well. But don't be constricted by those kind of, this is for this and this is for that and this is for this. For instance, things like Toggle. The Toggle time tracker is basically an online time card. One of those stamp cards back in the day. But what it also does, it means that you can track yourself. You can track yourself and see how you're getting on with particular tasks and see how much time you're spending doing a certain thing. So it's not necessarily you're not necessarily going to find these things in the place that you may perhaps think you're going to find them. Do a little bit of searching if you get the time. Hopefully, this is a good starting point if you haven't done already. Let me go through a little summary of some of the browser extensions that we have been talking about today, in no particular order, because that would mean that I would have to plan these sessions, these podcasts, a little bit more than I have. Basically, I got a water for me myself, and that's more planning than I've ever done at this point in time. So that's good. So there are extensions. EPUB Reader, all caps, is a really good extension for reading EPUB type files. We've got Loom. Loom extension means that you can press a button and start a Loom recording, a screen recording, and that particular program, in regards to screen capture, screen recording, is a really, really good one. You've got buttons that mean that you don't have to go to a separate address every single time. So, for instance, the Office browser extension, you press on it, you can see documents that you've been looking at recently, or you can go to PowerPoint, you can go to Word, etc., with the press of a button rather than spending some time. I've talked about a number of clippers, information clippers, digital information clippers, such as OneNote, Evernote, and Notion. In all honesty, when it comes to Notion, I don't know if you've heard of that one before. I think that Notion in itself, I may do a show especially on that particular program, because I think it's got a lot of scope for teachers, but I'll have a think about that later on. We looked at Scribe, which is an auto-generated instructional tool. So you click on a couple of things, it notes what those things are, gives it a title, and you can create instructions for students on how to get to certain places. We have get to certain places, like not geographically, digitally. I mean, it's like Google Maps. That'd be for what you get to certain places. But anyway, Stay Focused. Stay Focused is an extension browser, sits on your browser, and it blocks websites that you may not be going on if you want to be productive, as it were. It has a really good nuclear option for me when I am trying to write something. The nuclear option is something that I press every once in a while. Absolutely terrifying, but it does make you work. One of my favourites that I mentioned in Tom's Tech Tips, even Tom's top tech tips. I tell you what, if you're doing podcasting and you're doing a section on podcasting, don't use alliteration, because it is an absolute nightmare to pronounce sometimes. But one of my favourites is really just a fun thing. It's typewriter. It means when you press a key, it sounds like an old school typewriter, and I love that. I absolutely love that. I am old enough to remember using typewriters, not to a massive extent, but when they come up with one that makes it sound like a an old style word processor, that's just going to be an absolute joy. If you want to dictate something in a form on the web or on a page on the web that has a text box in it, voice in voice typing is a really, really good speech to text program that sits as a browser extension. You press it and you speak, and you get that form completed in half the time. Well, I say that in a shorter amount of time in my own case, in regards to typing. Let's have a look, see what else we've got here. I've talked a lot today, Yeah, voice and voice typing, really, really good. Web clippers, really, really good. Read aloud. If you want to take a break from the physical act of reading, read aloud means that you can just read just about any web-based text. We've got Diffree, or DIFREE, which is a distraction-free word processor that you can bring up in one press of the button on your browser as a browser extension button. One of my very favorites, didn't make it to the top 3 at the end, but I've mentioned it a couple of times, is Canby. If you need a little bit of help when it comes to organization and you like Kanban boards, this is a browser-based Kanban board. Really nice user interface, nice and simple, does what it's supposed to. If you are tasked with buying something from your school, you have to use Amazon, and you do have to use Amazon. Don't necessarily have to use Amazon, guys. I know that lots of people don't. But if you are that way inclined, Keepa, Keepa, is a price tracker. You can see if you're getting a good deal, see if the price has changed over a series of weeks and months, and so on and so forth. Mind Maps, specifically for Google Chrome. Mind Maps for Google Chrome, TM, is a very simple mind mapping program that sits in your browser. Toggle Track, one of my favorites of the evening, is a time card, a stamp card, basically a digital stamp card that will allow you to identify what you're doing, how long you're taking to do it. I think that's just about everything apart from the suggestions from the audience. Thank you very much for that. Some people who have taken the time out of their busy, incredibly hot day to just tweet in. Marina, Rob, thank you very much, Marina. I've got lots of tweets taking the mick about me being hot, but that's all right. Don't worry about that. We've also got Dan Rosen. Thank you very much for your very, very obvious but brilliant suggestion of Google Translate. A wonderful tool, should be used. Not obvious to everybody. That's not what I meant, Dan. I wasn't having a go. What I'm saying is really good. It's really good. It's so common that it's one of those ones that I forgot. So thank you for mentioning it, Dan. Cantab Kitty for Zoho Vault for a password keeper. Really, really useful tool. And also, as I rapidly scroll down, there I've missed a couple of people, and I do not like doing that. So let's have just a little stopgap to see if I can see who it was. Oh, I cannot. But there's been another couple of really, really good. David Boggett is actually the reason that I remember David Boggett is actually on the chat on the Podbean Live. Thank you very much for your suggestion, David. That was really, really good. And Mr. Baker at Mr. Baker Physics. Thanks, everybody. If you're listening live, thank you as well. If you're listening recording, check out my... I haven't had time to do it at the moment because multitasking is not one of my best skills. But what I'll do is after this show and after I've logged out and sorted myself out and poured a cold glass of water over my head, I'm going to put the links to all the extension browsers that I've mentioned during the show into Twitter. I'll I'll put it all under one thing so you can have a look, try some of this stuff out. If you haven't tried any of this stuff out, if nothing tickles your fancy, as it were, have a look at extensions anyway on whatever browser that you're using, whether it be Chrome, Edge, Firefox, or whatever. Have a look, because basically what you've got is you've got a whole bunch of free tools that makes your life easier. And who doesn't love free stuff? You know, I do. Who doesn't love making your life easier? Yeah, you know, and some of it is great, some of it's not so great. You know, I'm not kind of like, technology's going to spit. Some of this stuff sucks. You know, I'm not going to lie to you. Some of this is useless. You know, absolutely useless. But hopefully not the stuff that I've recommended, perhaps apart from typewriter. But I like typewriter. I know it's useless, but I love it. Yeah, some of this stuff is not going to be of any use. Some of it's really badly coded, and so on and so forth. But hopefully the things that I've mentioned will be of use. Have a look yourself, see what's out there for you for your particular role. You know, and find something if you have the time. I'm more than happy to give people advice as well. So if you think to yourself, I've got this particular issue, is there an extension browser that does this? Just hit me up on Twitter. Yeah, I love people giving people advice like this if it's useful. Love helping people out. It doesn't bother me at all. You know, if you've never had any contact with me at any point on the interwebs, hit me up anyway. Ask me a question, and I'll try and help out the best that I can at Starkey1212 about browser extensions. Nothing else, you know. Or I'm not an agony aunt. You know what I mean? Browser extensions only, guys. But anyway, listen. Thank you very much for listening to this show. I know there's a couple of people listening live. There'll be lots more listening on the download. Hopefully, in like a darkened room with about 15 fans going. I think I've cracked the music issue. He says, jinxing himself for the rest of the show. But once again, have a really, really, really good week. Try and keep as cool as possible. If your place of work is saying that you have to wear a tie, that's absolutely fine. But if they're not telling you whereabouts on your person to wear the tie, well, that's their issue, isn't it? You know what I mean? So thanks a lot, guys, and I will be with you at some point later.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.